Welcome to another adventure with archivist and historian Thomas L. Vince. This time, he is in search of the Clinton Airline Railroad. Few people know about this train line because it never came to fruition. It was to connect with the planned eastern portion of the line in western Pennsylvania, then to run to Tiffin in northwestern Ohio. It was designed in the 1850s to run straight as a plumb line, hence the name Airline, and it was planned to pass right through downtown Hudson. There is, in fact, a small portion of the Clinton line that was constructed in Hudson, a bridge over the Brandywine Creek, located in a remote area off of Morse Road. That construction is still in place, but is virtually inaccessible due to the overgrowth in its location. However, it was the other end of the line that pushed us to drive to Kinsman Township in Trumbull County, Ohio, where there were reports that a raised railbed for the Clinton line still existed. We were hoping to find that long-forgotten connection between Kinsman and Hudson, but we had very few details to go on. We started our search at the Kinsman Public Library, where Tom Vince discovered a non-railroad connection between Kinsman and Hudson.
We are now at the Kinsman Free Public Library Reading Garden. This is in Kinsman, Ohio, well east of Hudson, almost on the Pennsylvania line, but one of the early settlements in the Connecticut Western Reserve. And one of the families that came out from Connecticut was the Kinsman family, who are depicted behind me. The couple from Connecticut, the Kinsmans, who gave their name to the town, also to a well-known road leading into Cleveland's east side. Kinsman. This is also the place where the Clinton Line Railroad began. But let's mention more about the couple behind me. Rebecca Kinsman, whose portrait is inside the Kinsman Free Public Library, she was the person who gave the first endowed chair at the old Western Reserve College in Hudson. And so Kinsman was a place of destination for those seeking the funding for the old college in Hudson. And Rebecca Kinsman came through first by endowing a chair. I believe this was around 1835. So it was that probably Heman Oviatt came out here to tell Mrs. Kinsman what was going on in Hudson. And as you can see from the statue, she was someone who valued education. She's portrayed here as reading the scriptures. The book on her lap is actually the Bible, and she is reading one of the Psalms. And so here in this small village at the eastern end of Ohio was the first endowed chair at the old college in Hudson, Ohio. We're happy to be here today and to show you this statue of the Kinsmans, fairly recent to the beautiful garden here at the Kinsman Free Public Library.
Now we move out to the road in front of the library, by the historic Kinsman Presbyterian Church to seek more details about the history of the Clinton Line Railroad.
Here in Kinsman, the Clinton Line Railroad began. Yes, it came across the Pennsylvania line, started right here in this town, and then headed west 53 or 54 miles into downtown Hudson, and of course beyond. We are interested in this first link because between Kinsman and Hudson, the Clinton Line Railroad was incorporated as a separate company. From Hudson west was yet another company, both chartered by the state of Ohio and both under the presidency of Henry Noble Day, faculty at the old Western Reserve College, where he was presumably a professor of philosophy. But he was more interested in railroads and in development than he was in philosophical compliments. So here in Kinsman began the great experiment of running that railroad line west toward Hudson. It started here because Professor Day found some people here in this town who were willing to invest in the Clinton Line Railroad. In fact, he put one of the Kinsman men on the board of the Clinton Line Railroad. And we know also from letters that Day was here to oversee the start of the excavation of the line between Kinsman and Hudson. There's a letter even dated November 1852, signed by his son, who was about 12 years old at the time, Henry Miles Day. He was writing to an aunt in Connecticut, and he said to her, "Papa has been in Kinsman this week." He was there actually for 2 days, according to the letter. And then young Henry Miles says to the aunt in his letter, "You probably already know, Papa is president of the Clinton Line Railroad. It is all the go here." That meant that there were lots of people excited about this railroad that was going to come from the Pennsylvania line into a grand terminal located at the end of Clinton Street in Hudson. That was, of course, a new street, and that was named for the railroad that was to go there. We are here looking for remnants of the old Clinton Line right-of-way. They do exist, mainly on private property here in Kinsman. But some of that land that was originally part of the Clinton Line Railroad is behind this beautiful church. So we are looking at the Presbyterian Church, a very handsome early 19th century church, and behind it, where the cemetery is and beyond, we find there are the remnants of the Clinton Line Railroad as it was expected to go through this town, headed west through the rest of Trumbull County, through Geauga and Portage County into Summit County and the grand station that was planned for Clinton Street in Hudson. We're going to look at some of the other landmarks here in Kinsman, but our main focus is the Clinton Line. We're not going to be able to see too much of that today, but this is where the story began.
Now, we make a stop at Kinsman's historic Peter Allen Inn, with another Hudson connection as the pattern of our own Baldwin Bus Merino house.
We would be remiss if we didn't point out the beautiful Peter Allen house that is behind me. It bears quite a bit of resemblance to the Baldwin Bus House in the center of Hudson. In fact, the Baldwin Bus Foundation used photographs of this Peter Allen house to show what might happen once the Baldwin Bus House in Hudson was acquired, which it was during this past year, and it is going to be totally renovated and restored during the coming year. And we believe that it will also resemble the Peter Allen house in other ways. Over here we have an example of how they have built out from the back to put a patio where receptions and meetings can be held. And this is the same idea that the Baldwin Bus Foundation has already mentioned as part of their long-range plans for the house. What I found interesting about this house, also built probably in the 1820s, and maybe Lemuel Porter from Hudson had something to do with it, we're not quite sure, but this house is in many ways more elaborate than the one in Hudson. The surrounds of the windows are very much more detailed and finer than what we have in Hudson. And above the Corinthian pillars that are on the front, we have a very delicate swag that I don't believe we have at the Baldwin Bus House. But like Baldwin Bus, this is a Greek revival house built in the 1820s, and having a wing on it which was pretty much the standard for Greek revival houses of that era. So we're glad to have the opportunity to be in Kinsman today, talking about the Clinton Line Railroad, and also bringing to the fore this beautiful Peter Allen house from the 1820s. You can also stay here, dine here, have lunch here, enjoy the beautiful ambiance, Peter Allen House, Kinsman, Ohio.
One more stop at another historic landmark in Kinsman, the Octagon House, that was owned by the father of legendary defense attorney Clarence Darrow.
We're here at the Clarence Darrow House in Kinsman, and this is an octagonal house, an 8-sided house. About 36 of these were built in Ohio during the 1850s, when this was a popular form of a house. Orson Fowler, in his book on houses, says that it is healthier to live in an octagonal house. Here in Kinsman, I believe this is the only example, built around 1854 and purchased by the father of noted attorney Clarence Darrow. Darrow went on to great fame in this country as a trial lawyer. He was the one who defended Leopold and Loeb in that famous kidnapping trial in the 1920s. And he also is depicted in Inherit the Wind, that play about William Jennings Bryan versus Clarence Darrow at the Monkey trial in Tennessee, where the issue of whether of evolution was tried and convicted, and the teacher was in fact convicted at that time. William Jennings Bryan, in fact, won that case, but it was Clarence Darrow who made the impact on the country with his defense in that famous trial. Clarence Darrow, born here in Kinsman, Ohio, died 1938, probably related in some way to the Darrows of Hudson, Ohio.
The next stop in Kinsman is the historic Swift Kinsman House, once the residence of Ohio Senator Tom Kinsman, and currently owned by former North Carolina residents Gary and Donna Moss.
We're here at the Swift Kinsman House. This house was just recently put on the National Register of Historic Places. And as you can see, it is also a modified Greek Revival house. Once this property belonged to the Kinsman family, later occupied by a family named Swift, hence the name. But another beautiful example of this early Greek Revival style that is so predominant in the Connecticut Western Reserve. And here also in the beautiful village of Kinsman, where we are today, enjoying the wonderful weather and also exploring the location of the Clinton Line Railroad.
It was on Mr. Moss's property at the Swift Kinsman House that we finally found our goal, the raised railbed of the Clinton Airline Railroad in Kinsman.
Well, here we are. This is the right-of-way of the Clinton Line Railroad. It took some doing for us to find this, and thanks to the hospitality of Gary Moss, the owner of that Swift Kinsman house that we saw in an earlier chapter, he directed us to this area, which is behind the 25 acres that he owns here in the center of town. But this is a wonderful example of what the Clinton Line did. First, they built up an embankment, which I'm standing on, and which is clearly visible when you're in certain parts of this town. I would say it's probably more difficult to see it during the summer months. But here we are. You can see a long alley behind me representing the right-of-way of the Clinton Line Railroad, started 1852. And I imagine that our friend, Professor Henry Noble Day of Western Reserve College, Hudson, may have stood near here in the fall of 1852 and watched the workmen excavating this area for the line that would take the railroad from the Pennsylvania line all the way into the center of Hudson. Wonderful that this still exists, that you're able to actually see where the Clinton line was. Better than anything that has survived in Hudson, except for that wonderful bridge over the creek on Morse Road. But we are happy to be able to show this to you today. This is really what we came to Kinsman to find. We weren't sure that we could actually find this, but I think persistence paid off. And thanks again to Gary Moss, recently here from North Carolina, and very interested in the history of the community, as well as the history of this particular artifact of the 19th century, the Clinton Line Railroad. Tom Vince, standing on the banks of the Clinton Line, Kinsman, Ohio.
With our goal finally located, here are some more views of the Clinton Line Railroad bed in Kinsman. Back home in Hudson, here are a few serene views of the Clinton Airline Overpass Bridge that is well hidden but is still standing near downtown Hudson. Many thanks to Mr. Gary Moss, who welcomed us onto his property to find our goal, the train bed of the Clinton Airline Railroad in Kinsman.